The Kansas City Chiefs are still the team to beat in the AFC, but there's some AFC West teams that are on their heels, man. We'll talk about it today here on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
There's no doubt about that, man. It is your team every day here on Locked On NFL. We thank you for making us your first listen, reminding you that we're also free to subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you tap into that location, whether you watch or listen. Locked On NFL will be there. And this episode is brought to you by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox. That's right. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to learn more. You're going to learn more about the AFC West here today. My man Matt Williamson here from the Peacock and Williamson podcast. He always joins me here on Friday. We're going to talk about in the third segment of Broncos being a sleeping giant. In the middle of the show, Harbaugh's plan. But at the top of the show, Matt, I want to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, man. They got back to that point, and they got to the Super Bowl and got blown out, right? And they lost. They think they have fixed their offensive line here in the draft and in free agency. It's just hard to stay at the top for that long, man. Everybody's always chasing you.
No question. Now, Mahomes and Reed's a good start, though. You know, I mean,
a hell of a start.
It gives you a really, really high floor. Probably should throw Kelsey and especially Spagnuolo in there too. I always and Jones. You're right. I mean, there are some stalwart Hall of Famers, all-time greats at what they've done that have kept this thing more than just afloat, but really thriving. Now, I think you touched on it. I mean, with Spags, Jones, and basically their defensive personnel, I'm sure that's going to be a top half of the league unit without question. I don't know if it's going to be a top 5, but it's going to be good. Which is good enough for them to be a big-time contender because the offense is never going to fall apart.
Right.
Now, Thuney's a really good player, and he's gone. And the left side of the line, and the line was a problem against top teams. I mean, we act like it's a problem. It was a problem against the Eagles in the Super Bowl. Yeah. But they got to the Super Bowl. I mean, these are different problems. I mean, a bad year. I mean, I can't stress this enough that the worst year the Chiefs have had as Mahomes as a starter is losing the AFC Championship game. So they're a Final Four team at a minimum. So these are pretty good problems to have. But I do like that they threw a lot of options at the offensive line, including like Suamataia from last year. Yeah. His story's not written. I mean, he might turn out to be okay,
Yeah, man. And the thing about it is, when you're at the top, everybody's always gunning for you, and everybody's always shooting for you. But I like what you said. It's like they still made the Super Bowl. That's like having a Bentley and having a bent rim. It's like, okay, we still got a Bentley. We can fix it. Ain't no problem. Right. If a rim is going to cause us to trade the car in, we don't need the car anyway. You know what I mean? And that's the way it is. But the Chiefs I don't think that they're sitting there idle. Like, they know people are coming, and they got some real good coaches, like Hall of Fame level coaches that are chasing them. I can't recall a division. I'll get back to it. I can't recall one time when the division had so many strong coaches. And I'll tell you when. It goes back to our childhood. It's going to date us a little bit. But I want you to listen to the guys from Locked On Chiefs talk about why they know people are coming. Listen to this whole spiel. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I thought it was very telling. And I think most of the teams in this division did one thing and one thing above all else. They came for the Chiefs. The drafts were about stopping or slowing or not giving opportunity to the Chiefs. And nothing rings out more for me than that, than the 2 picks of Aston Genti at number 6, running back at 6.
Al Davis special.
Right? Well, yeah. And Amarin Hampton at 22 to the Chargers. Now, normally I am pretty mellow about this stuff because that old saying, when your enemies are making mistakes, don't interrupt them. But both these were concerted efforts, and you could even go back to number 60. The Broncos came back and took R.J. Harvey, who I think is an underrated back, and I really like what he does. But everybody came to try to control game time and keep it out of Patrick Mahomes' hands. That's how I interpret it. Am I nuts?
I wouldn't say you're nuts. I think the Raiders are nuts for taking a running back 6 overall. I don't care how much you like Geno Smith. You can think he's your franchise. I don't think a running back gets you to where you can compete with Patrick Mahomes.
It's funny how people from the top look at things, and everybody they think that everything that somebody does is aimed at them. But
I'm not sure the Chiefs are the sun that everything in the world revolves around. But I did think that was an interesting note about the running backs in the division.
Yeah, it is an interesting note. But the thing is, I think more teams, and especially when you talk about Pete Carroll, Sean Payton, and Harbaugh, they know what it takes to win. They're building this thing based on their own knowledge of being in the moment and what they think is going to get them to. Now, do they have a little bit of an eye on the Chiefs because they're the standard? Sure. They ain't sitting around drafting their team based on those jokers. They know what it takes to win, and they're building their team based on what they believe. It's old school principles. It just so happens the Chiefs are the team that's in their way.
Yeah, and a theme of the 2024 season led by Derrick Henry and especially Saquon Barkley, but also Josh Jacobs were.
And we talked about that last year, didn't we? Yeah.
Yeah, running backs are coming back big. You know, if you're going to play light boxes, then I'm going to pound you with Hampton, Genti, Harvey, you know. So I don't know that this is a Chiefs-centric thing as much as it's a league-wide thing. But your point is the best one, is there's 4 big-time coaches / team builders in that division now. You know, they're not just X's and O's, dude. They're team builders.
Man, listen, I always tell people I grew up looking at the NFC East.
I thought that's where you're going. Parcells, Gibbs.
Yeah, it's Parcells, Gibbs.
Landry for a while.
Landry and Jimmy Johnson, either one, because Jimmy Johnson replaced. And then you had Dick Vermeil and or Buddy Ryan. You know, so my thing is I grew up watching these guys just slay Game of Thrones every single weekend.
Yeah. And they were always on TV when you couldn't see many games.
So and then you got Bill Walsh out there in San Francisco beating up on Atlanta and New Orleans and all. Yeah. And then they're just sitting there waiting on you. They're waiting on you when you get to the playoffs. Y'all bruised and battered and scarred, and then the 49ers are sitting there like, okay, come on, let's go. We're going to run right through you. That's the way it was back then. And I'm going to tell you something, man. I think the AFC South is like right there right now. When you think of these coaches, I'm not one of those people that thinks that everything from my childhood is the greatest thing ever. Most of it is, but it's not always the case. I think these coaches right now, they ain't taking a back seat to nobody in terms of how many good coaches are in one division. We'll talk about Harbaugh. We mentioned him. He has a plan. He had one last year. He said he's going to weaponize his team, and he weaponized them with an offensive lineman. And now he's doing it with skill position players. We're going to talk about Jim Harbaugh and the chances that he has to lift the Los Angeles Chargers to new heights. We'll talk about it in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You didn't. I know you didn't. Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. I know y'all gonna have fun with this. So head on over to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube, third generation. All right, we're rolling along here. We're looking at the AFC South here with, not the AFC South, the AFC West here with, I'm getting all twisted, man. I talk about the Jaguars so much there, man. I'm always perpetually in the AFC South, but the AFC West, looking at it, last year Jim Harbaugh took over, and everybody said the first thing you need to do is get Justin Herbert some weapons. He says, I'm going to get him a weapon. I got him an offensive lineman, Joe Alt, who I believe if he was in this year's draft might have been the first overall pick. And he's that good of a prospect. He's that good of a player. He had a couple of stretches against some real tough guys like Chris Jones, who we mentioned earlier, and Max Crosby. But he held his own pretty well. And now Jim Harbaugh has armed that team with some skill position players. We talked about Amari and Hampton a little bit. We heard from about the Chiefs. They went and got Amari and Hampton. They also got a wide receiver from LSU. From Ole Miss. Man, look, they are doing a pretty good job out there. And considering they won 11 games, I think the stock is up on the Chargers.
I'm going to fight you a little.
A little bit? Okay.
Yeah. We don't disagree much, but I am a huge Harbaugh fan. I'm a huge Herbert fan. I love that they started with Alt. But I also think we need to look at two things. Well, really salary cap stuff. Whenever he took the Chargers job, they were in salary cap hell. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Bosa, Mack, all these guys are making a ton of money. They got rid of the receivers. They kept the edge guys. And all he did in free agency his first year was sign a blocking tight end. They didn't have any money.
Right.
Just give me a blocking tight end so I can run my heavy offense. Fine, I got that. And then they outkicked their coverage during the season. Great. Not
Absolutely.
Shocking because they got a quarterback and a coach, And this year, they had one of the top 3 or 4 most cap space in the league when free agency opened. And I would have liked to see more with that, to be honest with you. The guys you mentioned as additions, I don't have any problems with any of them. I just thought that they didn't get the most out of having a ton of cap space.
In Los Angeles. Yeah, I get you.
Yeah.
And I understand where you're coming from. Well, listen to these dudes from Locked On Chargers, man. They're going to, the way they start naming guys like Mekhi Becton, like they're Larry Allen and all of that stuff, but that's where it's supposed to be. I love my boys. Check this out.
Buy or sell, the Chargers will be more successful playing bully ball on the offensive side of the ball this season. David, you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I think the Chargers last season, they wanted to institute bully ball. It was definitely part of the philosophy. It was what they wanted to do, but they just didn't have all the personnel to be able to do it. And for me, I think, against the Steelers in particular, they saw it, towards the end of the game, a 10-play, 65-yard drive that milked for the last 4 minutes and 59 seconds off the clock and ended in victory formation for the Steelers. And the running back that was on that last drive, who received 4 out of those 10 plays, was, of course, Najee Harris, the current Chargers running back. So they said, well, hey, I can't really do it right now, but that right there, that's exactly what that looks like. And that's why I had to go get Najee Harris, and also why they had to reinforce that by bringing in Omarion Hampton, who has 1,222 yards after contact in his last season of college football. And of course, bringing in the monster on the right side, Mekhi Becton. And so I think, with what the moves that they've made, they put themselves in a much better position to go out there and actually play bully football.
I agree that that's what they're going to try to do. You saw Najee Harris up close and personal. I was still a little bit confused by that signing. I'm like, okay, it's almost too cliche. You go get the bully ball running back of all bully ball running backs, right? But you know what Najee's weaknesses are. And then they go back and double back and get Omarion Hampton, and it made it a little bit more understandable for me. It's all going to come down to Justin Herbert, though, man. It's going to come down to his ability to get the ball down the field when they need it. And it's going to be very interesting to me to see how that defense plays once they started trimming the fat with getting rid of Joey Bosa. And how are they going to react? Noah Asante Samuel Jr. Are they going to be able to keep that Harbaugh thing going defensively? It's something that we're going to have to watch.
Yeah, and I agree with most of what they said. Obviously, they are trying to play bully ball. Now, I'm not saying it's going to go good or bad, but Becton's had one good year with Jeff Stoutland. Is that going to keep up or not? The Eagles get the most out of these linemen. Are you buying high on this guy, after a great year with an elite O-line coach? I have great respect for Najee Harris. He's reliable and tough as they come, but he is what he is. And if he was the answer, you don't draft the first-round running back. That's all you need to know about him. He's a rotational banger, and he fits Harbaugh to the T. Now, I do think that staff, led by the head coach, maximizes defensive talent. Like a year ago, I looked at their D line and I'm like, who are these guys? You know, and they get a lot out of them. So I trust that side of the ball. They're going to be competitive. I would have hoped for just a little more splash, but they're not about splash. They're about, laying more and more foundation, and the quarterback elevates everybody. I definitely believe that.
Yep, and we always talk about that quarterback and coach combination. So if we look throughout that division, we'll get to the Raiders in segment 3, but you look, obviously, Reed and Mahomes is like top tier.
Yeah.
I say top tier, bro. I'm talking about top tier. That's like top 3. I'm going with Montana, obviously with Walsh, and then of course Belichick and Brady. It don't get too much better. I think people take that for granted too. We're getting on the Chiefs a little bit for being kind of domineering and protective of their little throne. But the thing is what you're seeing, what you're seeing currently with Kansas, that's not something that you see a whole bunch. In my lifetime, I may have seen it 5 times.
Right.
To have a coach and a quarterback combination that is this good. All right, so we're going to hit the other 2 teams in the division here in segment number 3. The Broncos, man. I think they're a sleeping giant. This is why I believe this is the best division in football, and it ain't even close, because we're sitting there talking about the Broncos and the Giants as if they're up-and-coming teams, and both of them actually went to the playoffs last year. We'll talk more about that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. All right, today's show is sponsored and brought to you by LinkedIn. As a small business owner, your work does not end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. I love it. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. Post your job is LinkedIn's new feature, and it can help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. All right, Matt Williamson, my man from the Peacock and Williamson podcast here, one of the founding members of Locked On NFL. I always got to mention my OG like that. We are sitting here looking at the AFC South. We talked mostly about the Kansas City Chiefs. We've gone over a little bit of the LA Chargers, the Denver Broncos, who I every time I bring them up, I got to give them credit, man, because I sat there and talked about Sean Payton and them like they were dogs, junkyard dogs last year, and then they up jumped the boogie and surprised me. And now they have me really, really tuned in, because not only do they have the best corner in the league, I think for guys that play only cornerback, because I'm not going to talk about Travis Hunter, I think they got the Aeneas Williams of this draft, like the surefire, like he ain't flashy, but what he is a pure football player in Jahdae Barron. I want you to listen to the guys from Locked On Broncos speak of him here.
I mean, when you watch the tape, the one thing you see right away that's not necessarily physical is that you see how smart he is of a football player. When you talk about football IQ, and it's even the little nuanced details. If he's playing inside the nickel, let's say he's to the field side, what is his leverage? Is he lined up inside to take away any in-breaking routes? Usually if you're lined up inside in that regard, it means that, you're more likely in man coverage. If he's head up, he could be playing man coverage, but he could just be reacting also in match. Depends on what comes into his area. And also, I think he excels in zone. He's very smart, I think, at reading route tendencies.
Listen to me, Matt. When you're 5'11", 190 pounds, do you know how good you have to be to get picked in the top 15 in the draft,
right?
In any draft, and to have people, I have not heard one person say one negative thing about Jahdae Barron this entire process.
Yep. And a big thing I've been kind of stressing, we started with the Chargers, and then we'll get to the Raiders, we only have 1 year to go off of, is what did these fantastic coaches do since the point they took over? Yeah. And with Payton, I'll be really honest. I mean, he was taking the year off. new ownership group, the Walmart people buy the Broncos, write him a giant check.
Yeah.
And he's taken over a terrible situation. They just trade for Russell Wilson. They don't have any picks. They don't have any cap room. And I'm thinking, good for you, Sean. That's a money grab. You're not going to win, and get a big paycheck and get out of there and don't tarnish your legacy too bad, but get off the couch and make a lot of money.
Right.
But that's not what happened at all. I mean, he built lines of scrimmage. He brought toughness, his style of play, his offensive wrinkles. And you mentioned it. I mean, defensive player of the year, best corner in the league. They lead the league in sacks by a wide margin, way more than anybody else. And then you add just a versatile chess piece that shouldn't have been there when you were going to draft anyway. So that defense is still going to be one of the best as Knicks continues to improve,
It is, man. And I saw where Tyler Rowland, the Madman, does the AM show. They were talking about Bo Nix. All the sophomore quarterbacks, they were praising Bo Nix like Bo Nix was gonna take that next step. I like what they did in the draft too. I like RJ Harvey, man. I think he's a hard cutback runner who get downhill. He can hit the home run. But I really do. It's almost as if Jahdae Barron was like the perfect draft choice to fall to them. Now, the Raiders. I don't have a Raiders clip, but what I do have, we're going to talk about Shedeur Sanders, the player that they did not choose in the draft. You heard somebody earlier say, I think it was on the Chiefs, they said, I would have taken a running back. I don't mind them taking Genti. I thought Genti was one of the 4 best players in the draft. And when you combine that with, it's 2 years in a row, they've taken a player that plays a position in the first round that's not really considered one of those priority positions. But you can also argue that they've taken the best offensive college football player in the world the last 2 years in Brock Bowers and Aston Genti. So give me your spill on the path and the direction that you see the Raiders going.
Yeah, and in this draft, I don't have a problem with Genti. I mean, there wasn't Joe Alt and Latham to pick from. I would have considered Membo. Don't get me wrong, I'm a Membo fan, but I give them credit. They did go back and get a couple offensive linemen, Caleb Rogers, Charles Grant in the 3rd round. So they didn't ignore that like a lot of teams did in this draft. And this one, I'm curious because we only have one offseason to go off of compared to 2, 3 for those other ones. And Carroll's not a young man. The running back in the 1st round, trading and extending Geno Smith says, I'm only here for 2 years and I'm going to try to win now,
I'm here for a long time. I'm just here for a good time. And
right.
And that's the right city to have that attitude in,
that's
too.
What I was saying. It fits the city. And not to mention, Vegas people didn't grow up Raiders fans. I mean, they're the Oakland Raiders to me and you, so they got to sell tickets. They got to win. They got to compete in this division. So I understand it for them. They get Christian Wilkins back. I think that's enticing, So I think they finally – we talk about you mentioned some all-time greats earlier in the show. Al Davis is an all-time NFL,
no doubt about it.
But he lost it at the end. I mean, his last 10 drafts or so were really, really bad, and nobody was telling him no. And now I think since Al Davis was in his prime, I really understand their vision and think that they could be back,
Yeah, I absolutely do. I do think Carroll gives them a little bit of proven stability and credibility in terms of the people that they bring in. Bringing in Geno Smith, obviously a lot of people saw the handshake between the owner, Mark Davis, and Shadure Sanders, and thought that maybe because there was a connection with Tom Brady training Shadure, that Shadure would end up in Las Vegas. They had different plans. Here's what this comes down to for me, and I'm going to try to put a bow on this and put it to bed. I'm going to let Ross Jackson tell you about Shadure. He covers a team with Locked On Saints that a lot of people thought that that's where he would end up. And I will admit, it didn't surprise me that it wasn't a first-round pick. It did surprise me that he lasted all the way to the 5th round. But I want you to hear Ross's reasoning because I think he says it as good as anybody can.
And I think the other side of all this, too, that we kind of have to remember is we're in an entirely different landscape in terms of what it is that these players are walking into the NFL with, the experiences that they have, the lives that they live, the money that they've got, all these other things. And there's going to be people around the NFL, for better or for worse, that don't like it. that aren't fans of it and that aren't going to sit there and hold your hand and aren't going to do all these other things. Not saying that Shedeur Sanders needed his hand held. I thought Shedeur Sanders was one of the best quarterbacks in this year's draft, but I don't think that he was the quarterback that was good enough to be able to overcome all of the other things that were going on. And I think that where the Sanders situation differs is the fact that, if I'm being honest, I don't know how much Deion Sanders helped his son's situation from getting prepared, from getting him ready for what these NFL teams are going to look for, how to play the game, how to interview, how to take everything with gratitude, all these other things. I think those are the things that NFL teams are looking for. And again, like I said, for better or for worse, whether you agree with it or whether you disagree with it, it's the environment of the NFL. And until you've shown up and proven something in this scenario, when you're already not the quarterback that's expected to go at the top of the board, then you're probably going to run into a situation to where you're going to end up doing yourself more detriment than.
Listen, I've said this the whole time. If I think there was a marrying of different perspectives here. A lot of us did not think that he was, as far as what prospect is, that he was the prospect that deserved to be a first round pick. Then you have to say, okay, if we're going to bring him in, he's going to be a developmental player who's going to be a backup. A backup quarterback walks, talks, and acts a certain way. Because there's a humility that comes with it. He doesn't do that. And so, look, I'm not criticizing him or Deion or anybody else, because we should all hope that we raise our kids to walk around with confidence and to feel like they, and to be financially secure. Shadeur's a good kid, man. He ain't getting in no trouble.
No.
Here's the thing. Is he the guy I could have be my humble backup? That's the question. Now he ain't got no choice, because he was humble and he was in the 5th round. And I'm not saying he needed to be humble. My point is though, being a backup quarterback requires a certain temperament, and I don't think a lot of people thought he had that. He has the starter's temperament, but they don't see starter in him.
Extremely well said, and incredibly well said by Ross Jackson, who's the man. We know Ross is awesome. And I thought he totally nailed it. And if Shedeur was as talented as Andrew Luck or Michael Vick, he would have been the first pick in the draft no matter what, And I do think he got some bad advice. It sounded like his combine interviews were very disinterested. He doesn't have time for these teams. You're not bigger than the NFL, man. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. Those owners will turn their back on you in a heartbeat. They don't care one bit. Their money's coming in. Their team will move on without you. And I think you nailed it. And what I find really interesting, I know we're not really talking Browns, but like, how do you divvy up the quarterback snaps in Cleveland in the preseason and in training camp and in mini camp? Like, Flacco's probably your starter, so he's got to run with the ones. But how do you develop 2 guys? And you traded for Pickett, that you must think there's something there with him.
I just gave Dylan Gabriel number 2, knowing that everything this kid has ever done off the field involves the number 2. And he shows up and he does what he's supposed to do. He ingratiates himself with the community, gets out, goes talking to kids, using his influence. But this is the thing. Here's the thing. That's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like 2 things can be right at the same time. Like, he's doing what he's supposed to be doing. You don't see a whole bunch of backups around the league get the attention for doing that. And so Dylan Gabriel is the dude that got screwed in this draft, not Shedeur, because guess what? Dylan Gabriel's in trouble. I'm telling you.
Oh, no doubt.
He's in absolute trouble. And if you don't see it coming, man, that's like me being 55 years old, letting some joker that lift weights all day, 30 Kato Kalin type dude come live in my house around my wife. Man, you crazy. I don't want that dude in my house walking around with his shirt off. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying, man. And I think this is a situation that we have to watch out. You don't have to watch too much longer to learn about all the teams around the league before these mini camps keep going. Jaguars start this weekend. Tune in to Locked On NFL Scouting with Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino. They can break it down, break all these rosters down, and give you the perspective that you need to understand how this thing is going to play out with 90 people in training camp this summer. Make sure you check it out. Check out Locked On NFL twice a day here also. And then my man Matt Williamson is on the Peacock and Williamson podcast, and I'll be on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for spending 30 minutes with us today. We appreciate it. Have a nice weekend from Locked On NFL.